Welcome back. Now, as we continue with more conversations on this Wednesday's edition of Good Morning Namibia. Now, divorce cases involve legal proceedings to end a marriage, focusing on aspects like fault, like adultery, desertion, and property division, as well as child custody maintenance with many jurisdictions. Now, Namibia's divorce law is undergoing major update with a new Dissolution of the Marriage Act 2024, which replaces fault-based grounds with an irretrievable breakdown of a marriage. Now, on Monday, this Monday, that is the 19th of January 2026, 111 divorce cases were recorded in the High Court, with 67 matters in Windhoek and 44 in Oshakati. Now, to help us unpack what this means during divorce proceedings, we're joined by legal practitioner Doris Hans-Kaumbi this morning. Madam Kaumbi, thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Getting into it, people used to say that perhaps getting married used to be about, two people coming together, deciding to start a family, raising children, as a unit. Is this still the case when it comes to marriage, or has something fundamentally changed?
Something has definitely changed. I mean, we're living in a social media era. So ultimately what people look at these days is the save the dates and the kitchen teas, etc., etc. So I think that what we've done is we've changed the reasons why we're getting divorced, married. We're no longer getting married because we want to create a family, we want to do X, Y, and Z. What we're doing is we're getting married to reach a certain status. And that's a problem because you're getting married for all the wrong reasons. So that has basically increased the risk of divorce. Because what then also happens is that because of the social media, people are caught having adulterous relationships quite quickly. So that is also then used as one of the biggest grounds for divorce.
Well, one would be saying that perhaps in the era of our grandparents and our parents, they had challenges too, but we don't necessarily see their livelihood on social media. What would perhaps maybe to extent make a spouse to say, okay, found someone sends you something that your spouse must have done, and the first thing that you do is to go to social media to validate?
The problem is everybody's a journalist these days. Everybody wants to notify everybody else that they found out first. So the sanctity of marriage is no longer, protected. What happens now is everybody feels that they can speak into your marriage. So if somebody sees you in a restaurant with somebody, even though it might be innocent, that already can be used to cast doubt. And unfortunately, I remember in the olden days that you were not allowed to come and speak to somebody about what they've seen, your partner do, etc., etc. But now with social media, if somebody shows you a picture of your husband talking to a woman in a certain way, that already brings about suspicions, and as a result, that person can go and file for divorce.
Indeed. Now, we know that in 2022, according to some statistics on e-justice, is that the Windhoek High Court also recorded 119 divorce cases on its roll. That was on a Monday in April. What seems to be the major reasons as to why the rate of divorce seems to be increasing? You talked about perhaps getting married for the wrong reasons. We also talk about people are looking for faults, maybe. It's the issue of properties. It's the issue of maybe perhaps debt. Is the issue of substance abuse. What are the other major contributing issues that maybe are coming from the reasons for filing these divorces?
Look, our system is fault-based currently still. So you must fall within the four of the reasons that you have available, which is the first one is obviously adultery. Now, adultery is not as easy to prove, but social media, like I just indicated, has made it quite easy to prove adultery. And you then have desertion, where the person, for example, firstly makes it very difficult for you to be in the household, where a person abuses you psychologically, emotionally, economically, where a person, for example, uses his or her family members or children, whatever, in the house to make life difficult for you. And as a result of that, you then leave the house. That's, for example, then constructive desertion. Then you have malicious desertion, where if a person, for example, does not want you anymore, he takes his bags, she takes her bags, and she leaves the common home. That is a ground for divorce. And then obviously the other two that's not so commonly used is when a person, for example, is declared mentally insane by two medical practitioners. And then the fourth reason is where a person is a habitual criminal. The person is declared a habitual criminal in and out of jail. There's no way that you can actually sustain a relationship like that. Now, with the new law, what we're trying to do is we want to remove the reasons for divorce. Because remember, a lot of people stay married or stay in abusive marriages because they either can't afford to get divorced or they do not even know where to start. So first and foremost, what we need to work on is the dissemination of information first. And then secondly, what we need to do is obviously what this law is trying to do is to make it easier to get divorced. Now, I'm a little bit worried about the way that we approach this, because what we're saying is, first and foremost, we are worried about divorces in Namibia generally. But then we're talking about making divorces easier.
There seems to be some sort of contradiction.
Isn't that a bit of a contradiction?
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that as a nation, we should be worried together. Because what we're saying is that there is definitely the family unit that is being desecrated. It's like there's no family unit to speak of. And when there's no family unit to speak of, we are going to have more domestic violence cases. We're going to have more violent crimes because people do not have the foundation that a mom and a dad can bring. So if we do not speak to premarital counseling becoming compulsory before you get married, in order for you to then at least stay in a marriage or at least be vigilant. Marriage is not easy. Do not think that this is a fashion show, premarital show that you're going to have the wedding and all that, and the wedding is definitely not the marriage. So you must be vigilant and know that marriage is a long haul. It's a walk, a long walk. So ultimately what we need to do is we need to equip people with the necessary details. Go to your priest, go to the elders. I mean, that used to be such a go-to, you know. Go speak to your elders to give you guidance in respect of how do you stay married, as opposed to now talking to your friends about how do I get divorced quicker? What is the cheapest lawyer? What is the fastest reason, or the easiest reason and the fastest way of getting divorced? Do you understand what I'm saying? So that is where we are currently, and that is where it's wrong.
That's where it's
so
wrong.
When we get back to the family and we understand our family values better, and our elders play a more active role, I think that's when we can start talking about getting back the family unit, trying to solve the crimes that come as a result of the lack of a family unit.
We know that in 2018, nearly 1,297 divorces were finalized in Windhoek alone, while 422 cases were filed the following year, that is 2019, of which I think approximately 862 were finalized. I know you did touch a bit on it. You know, what else should we consider before deciding to get a divorce, besides going to see your counselors, maybe seeing an elder, or going to maybe a priest? What else should we consider before divorce?
Look, currently our divorce system makes provision for a restitution period. Now, restitution period is normally, I call it like it's a little time out in the process of divorce. Because remember, to make the decision to get divorced is very difficult. Because there are various factors that you need to consider. You need to consider your children. You need to consider the fact that you might not be financially able to be alone, which is a lot. It's a big reason for people not to get divorced. And that's why you would see that people decide to live in the same house but live separate lives because they can't afford to go and have their own home. And then, so before you decide to ultimately get divorced, those are the things that you have to consider. Where am I going to live? How am I going to look after these children, et cetera, et cetera? So you have to consider your children. You have to consider the maintenance of these children. And I think these are discussions that people don't have before they get divorced. I think ultimately, especially if there's adultery involved, the one or the other party would be on a high because you're in a new relationship. Your life is beautiful. But what you tend to forget is that when things get real, when somebody serves you with a divorce summons to say, I've had enough, I'm getting out. The fact of the matter is you actually go and sit and you realize that, okay, fine, who's going to pay for the car insurance? Because my wife used to pay for the car insurance. Who's going to pay for the children's school fees? Because my wife used to pay for the school fees. But now she's going to want me to pay for the children's school fees, and I must still pay my own insurance. How am I going to get it done? These are the realities of divorce. Do you understand? And sometimes people get violent when they go, or when you put them under pressure, which means that, unfortunately, what we need to do is, people, first and foremost, before they get married, when you're busy with your premarital counseling, you need to be taught also about financial discipline. You need to be taught about the fact that when you have children, you both have a duty to maintain these children. And you need to understand that if you do not have a sit down on the expenses that you are likely going to face as a couple, you are going to run into trouble. And also to live within your means, because unfortunately, divorces happen. And because we know divorces happen, what we need to do is you need to save that. I'm sorry, I sound like a doom prophet because it would say that I'm saying that you must save in case the divorce comes. But these are realities. You don't want to sit with a broken heart and broke. You don't want to sit on the street unable to pay your rent, unable to pay your children's school fees. I've seen so many children being negatively affected, being at a private school, and suddenly because mom and dad decides they don't want to be together, they have to now go to a government school. No friends, your friends are gone, your house that you used to live in is gone. These are realities. So what the new law does, and this is where it's very good, is that it makes sure that the children, the best interest of the child is placed first. You no longer will get a divorce until your children's issues are decided. Currently what we do is that we give ad hoc orders. So what we say is that at least let the people get divorced. They can sort out the children issues later. I've never been a proponent of that because I believe that as soon as a person is divorced, you feel that, okay, I'm free, I can go on with my life. But what you don't understand is that your children's issues are not resolved, meaning your child does not know who is my custodial or who is going to take care of my financial needs, because that is apparently placed on hold. But this new act says you are not getting your divorce until you tell me where the child is going to go to, how much maintenance is going to be paid. So the interest of the child, I like, in this act is very well protected. So that is a good check.
Talking about it, we understand that the Minister of Justice and Labour Relations, Wise Emmanuel, said that, and I quote, he would commence with the Dissolution of the Marriage Act 2024. Talk to us briefly in terms of what this means in terms of this act, and what are your sentiments about commencing with this Dissolution of the Marriage Act of 2024?
Firstly, what we have to take into account is that fine, this act was passed in 2024. The commencement date has not been. I know that the idea is that it will commence this year. But the challenges with regards to this act is the fact that, remember, we're now moving to divorce as being a status matter, meaning it changes your status from single to married, from married to single. So that has always happened in the High Court. Now, what the new act does is it says that it must go to the regional courts. It doesn't take away the power from the High Court, but it does say that this can be done in a regional court, because that power will then be delegated to the regional courts. Now, we have several regional courts all over the country, which makes it more accessible. What it further also does is it says that parties can now, where they agree to get divorced, just approach the court and get the divorce. So it's fast, it's easy. And there's no reason for you to establish fault. Whether I've had an adulterous relationship or not, if you agree that you no longer want to be married, I don't want to be married to you, let's get it over and done with. Because unfortunately, and it is true, that currently if we can't agree on the reason why we're getting divorced, you're saying I committed adultery, I'm of the effect that you left me way before. You left me emotionally way before I committed the adultery. We're at odds in terms of the reason. Now we want to prove to the court that no, the reason why I'm getting divorced is because my husband cheated. No, the reason because I want to get divorced is because my husband is not giving me my marital privileges. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that falls away because now it's irretrievable breakdown, meaning that the marriage cannot be restored. That's irretrievable breakdown. There's no way that we can restore it. Now, what this new law says that the two parties go to court, get it done. In a regional court, smooth, easy, gone. The difficulties with that is that the regional courts might not, or currently is not equipped to handle that. Unfortunately, there will be a capacity issue. So until you capacitate the regional court, you won't be able to commence this act. And we don't want a situation where this act is commenced with, and then you struggle with capacity issues. Because remember, if you've just mentioned the divorce numbers, it's quite a bulk of the work. If you go to the High Court, there's a lot of, every Monday, there's a lot of issues with regards to family issues. And currently the magistrates courts deal with maintenance, they deal with children's court matters, they deal with domestic violence, and now they deal with divorces. So you're going to place too much of a burden on the magistrates courts, because the regional courts are based at the magistrates court. So that is what's going to happen. Now, if something goes wrong, what you're going to do is the resultant effect is that regional courts won't be able to handle it. You can still go to the High Court, so it will still siphon through to the High Court. So you're going to go back and put pressure on the High Court. And that is not what we want. So we must be sure that before we commence with this act, we are properly capacitated to do so. And the magistrates have to get proper training. Because remember, ultimately, because it's a status matter, you don't want the issue because it influences a lot of things. You don't want people to get the wrong orders, etc. So you must train our people and equip them.
Now, this one is going to be a quite lengthy question. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. You know, we have issues of people who might be legally married, you know, but have, you know, they're sort of living separate lives. They haven't officially separated. You know, it talks about, you know, divorce proceedings. Will this new act, you know, for instance, make it much cheaper for them, you know, especially with regards to cost implications? We also talked about, you know, perhaps the role of the magistrate's court. You know, normally we have seen also that magistrates spend some time, perhaps even an hour or two, you know, with those that are intending on getting married before signing it off. You know, is this enough preparation, especially for those that are planning on getting married? Talk to us also about the issue of mediation in the process when there is a misunderstanding, because sometimes misunderstanding don't necessarily have to lead to divorce and can be resolved.
True.
And also in terms of this compulsory pre-marital counseling, do you maybe agree that maybe this infringes on one's personal freedom? Is it a practice that you would advise and recommend? I know perhaps maybe there might be a difference in terms of religion and the law. Sometimes there's always clash. And, you know, the psychological assistance for children to mitigate the effects of divorce. If one goes through a divorce, where do they start?
Okay, this is quite a mouthful, but I'll try to the best of my abilities to address all the issues that you've raised. So first and foremost, what you need to understand, I'll start with the premarital counseling, because I always say that when you enter into marriage is a contract, and people tend to forget that it's a contract. So when you enter into a contract, you want to know the terms and conditions, because you're putting pen to paper. So know what you're getting yourself into. So you need to understand, first and foremost, am I getting married in or out of community property? Are we going to have joint assets, or are we going to keep our estates separate? And are we going to just basically come together when we have to pay our joint expenses? And this is where the financial discussion is important. You know, love won't cure your financial issues. So ultimately what you need to do is you need to sit down and have this conversation with each other about how are we going to pay for the house, the children, the school, etc. Secondly, what needs to happen with premarital counseling is also, you must understand that I know that there are various churches. The church that I belong to, for example, the Roman Catholic Church, is we have to have there's compulsory premarital counseling that we undergo. It might not be long enough, and I think I've raised with one of my priests before that maybe we should look at having a longer period for it, because there's no way that you can, in a weekend, for example, disseminate enough information about marriage. And also, I blame our elders to a certain extent. Our elders do not really speak to us about marriage. They do not speak to us about the fact that if your husband steps out or if your wife steps out, how to deal with that. Because these are realities of life, whether we want to or not. You know, we're not saints. We're humans. We're fallible. We make mistakes. How do you deal with an issue when somebody makes a mistake in a marriage? Is it then to run to a divorce court, or is there a way that you can mitigate or at least mediate your issues in order to find a common ground that you can actually move towards restoring your marriage without getting a divorce? Now, mediation as a process. Now, currently, mediation is catered for in the divorce process, which is an excellent tool if used right. Problem is, a lot of us lawyers, and I'd say us lawyers, do not use it right. Because you must understand that if you go to trial, I get more money as the lawyer. Because I charge you a day fee.
A day fee.
Do you understand? And my day fee, for example, can go up to 40,000. People cannot afford that. But because you come and you make use of my services and I've given you a mandate to sign and you know what you need to pay, for example, you are bound to then pay me for my services if it's a contested divorce. Now, the crisis with that is if mediation comes and a lawyer sees that there's a potential of going to trial, they opt to go to trial because I can pay. And this, I've spoken to my colleagues to say, look, mediation is a process we should use to the full extent of the law in terms of making sure that we find an amicable solution at mediation in respect of our children, the children being custody, maintenance, school fees, etc. So that would be resolved at mediation. You would then also at mediation resolve the fact that in a fault-based system, you can also say, okay, fine, I will withdraw my reasons for divorce. You can continue with your reasons. So you go ahead and say that I conducted the adultery. I will concede to that. And in that way, that issue is also resolved at mediation. Do you understand? Then we come to our division of the property. I want the house. You want to be paid out. Can I afford to pay you out? The house is $1 million. You're entitled to, for example, 500,000. We've paid off the house. How am I going to pay you 500,000 when I stay with the children? How do we do that? Mediation is where you can speak about this. For example, the person can say, instead of me paying for maintenance, can you take the 500,000 that I was supposed to pay you, right? Can you then use that for maintenance for the children? Let's draft an agreement, a settlement agreement, where we stipulate how we're going to use this $500 for the benefit of the children. Then I move out, you take the house, you continue with the children. Do you understand? This is where mediation becomes important. And if used right, it shortens the process. Because remember, immediately after the pleadings are closed, you then don't have to go to court. So you don't have to pay me my day fee. You literally just pay for the filing of the papers and then the going to the mediation, which is much cheaper. Do you understand? Now, with the new act, what happens with the new act is the minister is giving the judge president the authority to set tariffs, right? So there's a limitation in respect of what lawyers can charge. So instead of, for example, if my fee is $5,000 an hour, now the judge president comes and says, okay, you're not getting your $5,000 per hour. You're going to get 1,200 and you're going to be happy with it. And that's it. You can't fight with it because it is the law. The judge president has spoken. So now you're going to charge 1,200, which is a little bit more affordable for people. Do you understand? So those are the things that we need to look at. Now, in respect of, you asked another question in respect of the...
Those that might be living together and probably have not yet, yes.
Now, the unfortunate part is most of the people that are separated, there are so many of our elders all over the country that have decided that they are going to part ways. The one lives with Mary, the other one lives with John, but they're still legally married to Joanna and Saro, okay? So the unfortunate part is when they die, they create issues for their children. So they would actually be the ones that one would encourage to get divorced because there's no marriage there. I mean, if you've been separated for 10, 20 years, there's no reason. You are just causing havoc at your death for your children. Now this law will make it easier because you and I have already agreed by virtue of our conduct, do you understand, that we don't want to be together. So why can't we just take each other by the hand, go to the regional court and get divorced? That is where this law then comes in. It makes it easier and makes it cheaper because now I can do it for 1,200 as opposed to 5,000 per hour.
Per hour, indeed.
Yes.
Well, I wish we could continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but Doris Hans-Kaumbi, thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay.